people attack you and your character or your looks or whatever it is, your response can inspire others.
Fight over what the truth is.
All right, good afternoon. This is Lucky Lynx. So listen, when I was in graduate school, was a very interesting phenomenon that started happening. They were always trying to tell us, find your own voice, find your own voice, find your own voice. They kept saying, hey, you got to find your own voice. And we spent so much time reading other writers' work and quoting other writers that at one point I realized, I was sitting in a publishing class and I realized, I remember writing it down in my journal at the time. I said, my mouth is filled to overflowing with other people's quotes. I said, at what point do I want to quote myself? And what point do I want to realize what I believe? Not what this other person believes. So I started thinking about that a lot. And then there was something else that happened in school. That there was a person working in the office that had been working on her thesis. She was in graduate school, and for our thesis we had to write a novel. And we had to prove that it was sellable. So we had to actually publish pieces of it if we wanted to graduate. So there was one person, she was in the front office, and she had been actually in the program for 15 years, and she hadn't written her book. And she said, maybe someday I'll get back to finishing that book. And I just thought, oh my God, I just can't imagine doing this for 15 years. I wrote like crazy. I just realized that the only way that I was really going to do anything and get it done was if I wrote. And it got to the point where I wrote so much that teachers were stopping me from writing because they're like, you're writing too much. And I'm like, no, I'm not. No, I'm not, because I want to figure out what it is I have to say. And I sold a couple of pieces of that book right away. There were 2 national magazines I sold it to, and I still remember it was the funniest thing in the world. I might have mentioned this in another video, but it was the funniest thing in the world. They were always about rewriting, they were always about reading other people's work, and they were always about quoting other people. And I remember there was this chapter that I did, and I'm like, if I hand this in, they're going to want me to rewrite it, they're going to want to change what it is. And it came right as it needed to. And I'm like, I do not want someone else manipulating this. So I sent it to a magazine. And the editor, and it was a magazine that since I was in college, it was the big literary magazine that I wanted to be in, and it was a goal of mine to get in that magazine. And I got a call from the editor, and he said, we're buying your piece. So when it came up for a review in the class, the department chair said, well, this needs work. I said, no, it doesn't. I sold it. And he says, well, that doesn't mean it's done. I'm like, yeah, it does. As far as I'm concerned, it's done. Because I was so tired of people trying to get involved. There's something to what I just told you and how I learned to read the tarot, which I'll explain in another video later. But that was a really big turning point in my life when I was in grad school, and I realized people were constantly fiddling with what we had to say and what our own experience was, and at the same time we were constantly quoting other people. So when I started teaching, I ended up, in one of the schools I was teaching at, I ended up teaching research. When we taught research back then, there was this, the sort of holy grail. It was sort of the holy grail of research was when you could find something on a subject and it was someone's diary. Even while I was in grad school, and we were always looking for writers' processes and how they did stuff. So if you could figure out how to sort of hack it and use it yourself, right? We were always looking for diaries. As a diary meant that it came from the person's experience, and the person who was successful, if you got it from their experience, you were likely to be able to reproduce it or model it. There's a lot of people out there. People like Tony Robbins talk about this all the time. Really great hypnotist. Milton Erickson, talked about this. They're always talking about you model what's successful, right? Well, you model what's successful because you go on that experience that's successful, right? And when you get a person's direct experience through either they tell you through a letter, so we're always looking for letters, always looking for diaries. So when I was teaching research back in school, when I started teaching, I was always encouraging people to find diaries and to find letters, because those were like the holy grail. That was actually, so if you're writing a historical piece and you found a diary, well, that showed you actually from the person's own words what was happening at the time. It was their own experience of what was going on. And it usually came with really high weight. Now here's this weird thing. Somewhere over the last, 10, 15 years, this weird thing started happening where I started watching people talk about this concept where a person's direct experience was anecdotal. So someone found a way to take direct experience, which used to be like the holy grail of learning. Oh my God, this person had success. This is from their own mouth of how they did it. And instead it was like, no, we want something that's anecdotal, that doesn't have any value. Our mouths are filled to overflowing with other people's words. People don't have the experience of something. They're reading about it, they're watching a video about it, and then they're going around and they're telling people, and they're like training other people, or they're training other people how to do it, which is fine. I mean, you can look something up, you can learn it, and then teach someone else how you did it. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people who go out and read a book about something, and then now they're the expert. They've never actually experienced the thing, you see? But now they're the expert. This is happening in the spiritual world right now. There was a video I saw today with someone. He's a very big person, and he's a very famous person, and he suddenly set himself up as a spiritual guru, but he's quoting all these other people, and he doesn't really have this. He's not really speaking from his own experience. And I look at it this way. Look, if you haven't gone down this road, if you haven't gone down the road before me, you can't show me how to get there. You can show me what you think will get me there. You can tell me what you're quoting from other people, how they got there, but that doesn't mean that you got there. And that doesn't mean that you know how to get there. So I want you to think about this. Our mouths are filled to overflowing with other people's words. When that happens, you don't even know if they're your own values. Because if you haven't had the experience and you haven't measured it off of your heart, how can you even say that it has any validity to your values? Right now, people are coming from a place where they don't know what their own values are. They're alienated from themselves because all they're doing is quoting other people, and they don't have their own direct experience. They're living vicariously. They're living a second-hand life. Now, this is a whole other topic. The vicarious living happens because of fear. There's 7 stages of fear. Vicarious living starts happening at one point. I think it's around, if I remember correctly, it's point 3. It's at the 3rd point of fear. But people set themselves up with all this vicarious living. They take a quote and then they'll die for it. They argue for it. People are destroying each other over things that they haven't even experienced. I'll never forget when I was learning hypnotism with this master hypnotist who did some amazing things in the world, on the world scale, with the human mind. I remember people questioning him, who I knew, who I'd introduced him to, because of things that they saw on TV. When he was actually out in the world, on the world stage, using this stuff and making change and making things happen, and people were questioning him based on things that they saw in a television show, and in a fictional television show. And I was like, are you kidding me? So I want you to consider this in terms of this stuff. And there's a reason why I'm always saying do it, practice it, experiment with it. If you experiment with it, if you play with it, you know firsthand. That was really how I learned how to do the tarot the way that people always ask me, what's your secret? How did you learn how to do it? This is how I did it. I got tired by the time I started doing this stuff. I got tired of people telling me how to learn and what my experience was, so I taught myself. And then I figured out how to teach other people to teach themselves. Because I had so many people when I started this telling me how it had to be done. Because of the traditions and the books and all that stuff. They could quote a lot of other people, but they couldn't show me that they could do it and really do it. And not do it the way that I wanted to do it. I wanted to really be able to do it in a way that spooked people. And made them go, how the hell you did it? So now, you have to be open to the experience, and you have to be able to speak from direct experience. Otherwise, you can't do it. There's a guy in the hot tub today. I was at the gym, I worked out, went in the hot tub, and this guy was we were talking about Santa Cruz and how that was where Lost Boys, where the Lost Boys was filmed, right? We were starting to talk about all that spooky stuff, and he asked me what I did, and I said, I'm a professional psychic. And he said, I went to this flea market, and there was a palmist there, and she asked me if I wanted my palm read, and I thought I'd play with her a little, and he goes, hey, I don't want you to read my palm, could you read my feet? And she got angry with him. And I said, you can read a person's feet. And he goes, what are you talking about? And I said, what's going on with your big toe? And he says, it's numb. And I said, well, then you've spent the majority of your life doing what other people want you to do, and it's gotten so bad that you don't even remember what you originally wanted to be. And he went, oh my God, that's been my whole life. And then he started talking about his relationship with his ex-wife and everything, and I described her. I described her energy type, I described her habits, I described everything. And he freaked out, and we were talking a little bit, and then he came and he sat next to me, and he said, how did you know about my ex-wife? How did you know all of that? It's because I didn't read a book about it. When I originally learned these concepts, which actually had to do with nature, and I looked at him and I said, it has to do with nature and the natural world and how nature works. When I first learned this stuff, my master said, take this, go do it. He didn't say read about it, he said go do it. And I liked that because that was more like the way I started to learn this. I started to experiment. This stuff is about learning from experience. If you want to get unstuck in your spiritual path, you have to do something. If you want to find out how this thing tastes, you have to taste it. If you want to find out how it operates, you have to do it. You have to play with it. You have to experiment. Our mouths are filled to overflowing with quotes of other people. We have no experience of our own, and yet we fight with each other about what the truth is. How could you fight about a truth that you've never even experienced? I'm Lucky Lynx, as always, wishing you success and good fortune in all that you do. If you'd like to take a tarot class with me that is based on experience, that is based on experimentation, which is based on learning for yourself and gaining a deep, meaningful connection with the Oracle, I'm starting a basic tarot class very soon, beginning of July. People are already signed up for it. If you'd like to know how to get in on it, contact me, 779-302-8009 or conjurehope@gmail.com, and I'll let you in on all the details. I also have an intermediate to advanced class will make your abilities soar. I have one in playing cards. I have one in crystal ball reading. I have one on how to read Mexican Loteria cards. I have two in Lenormand, one in basic Lenormand and one in how to read the Grand Tableau. And I also have one in playing, did I say playing cards already? I think that's all of them. All of them are experience-based. I show you how to do it, I show you what the principles are, and I make you experiment. And with the experiments comes wisdom. Direct experience results in wisdom. If you'd like to get a reading from me, 779-302-8009 or conjurehope@gmail.com. Also, if you'd like to get some hypnosis and you're in the Bay Area, I can hook you up there too, so contact me. Hey, if you like these videos and they're helping you out and you want to donate, go ahead. I put the things below, the PayPal and the Venmo. Feel free to donate to help keep these videos coming. And thank you. Oh my gosh, the generosity of folks. Thank you so much. I'm Lucky Lynx again, wishing you success and good fortune in all that you do. You guys have a fantastic weekend.